Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Morning Pitt here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, the midweek edition. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got a jam-packed Morning Pitt. I don't even know if I could spend time talking to you about liking the video and subscribing to the YouTube channel. I already did it once, and I just did it again. And I'm going to do it probably a couple more times because I really think you should like this video, and I really think you should subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Remember, if you subscribe, you can turn on notifications and get an alert sent to your phone every time we post new content at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, and every time we go live, which is going to be particularly relevant tonight as we've got a live stream planned for this evening. Now, you might say, well, yeah, Chris, it's Wednesday night. You always do a live stream on Wednesdays. And you'd be right about that, but this one's a little bit unique. Rather than our typical 8:30 start time, we're going to go a little bit later. It's going to be a post-game show. Pitt plays at Duke tonight at 7 o'clock. Huge game for the Panthers. One of 15 remaining regular season games, and certainly just one of many, but as an opportunity to bounce back from the Clemson loss. And, just playing a game at Duke, it's always going to have some extra juice to it. So it's a huge game tonight, and we didn't want to start a live stream, midway through the second half. So we're going to wait till the game is over and then go live after the game to talk about Pitt Duke. It should be, and whatever else comes up. We'll have plenty of topics to talk about for sure. Now, I don't know what time we're going to start. I hope it's like 9:15. I hope it's not any later than that because I don't want to stay up too late tonight. But I don't know what time it's going to start. It depends on how long the game goes, and then we'll start a little bit after the end of the game. If you want to make sure you don't miss it, hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and you'll get a little alert sent to your phone that says, hey, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com is doing something. Go check it out. So you want to make sure that you do that today. If you've been on the fence or you're just like, come on, shut up, man. I don't care. I'm not subscribing to your stupid YouTube channel. You should change your mind and subscribe to our stupid YouTube channel. This is the time to do it. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, because like I say, we've got a live show tonight and you don't want to miss it. You want to make sure you are tuned in for that one. Should be fun. This is our first post-game or basketball post-game show. We did it all season during the football season with the after every game. Now we're going to do it after the basketball game. Should be fun. We'll do these every now and then. Not every game we'll have a post-game show, but we'll get them in there. Maybe once a week or so. We'll see how the schedule kind of plays out. But if there's a game on a Wednesday night, we're going to do one that night. And so here we are, looking forward to our first one this evening. And it's funny, this is a day where Pitt's going to play at Duke with a chance to bounce back from a loss, a chance to improve to 5-1 in conference play. And it's only one of like 3 different stories that we need to talk about today, maybe more, because there's a lot going on. And I'm going to start with a couple of the other things because I feel like we can sort of move through those a little bit more quickly than the Duke game. And we'll certainly spend a lot of time talking about that as well. But let's start with the rankings. All right, we'll start with the Associated Press poll and the college football coaches poll in the aftermath of Monday night's national championship game. A real barn burner that one was. The AP poll came out and Pitt checked in at number 22. Panthers finished the season ranked in the AP poll, making it back-to-back seasons where they finished ranked. And this is the first time they finished ranked in the postseason poll, back-to-back seasons. First time since 1983. They had like a 5-year run from 1979 to 1983 where they were ranked at the end of every season. And since then, they've never had more than a single season. They've never done it in consecutive years. And so while it's a bit of a I don't want to say a bit. I don't want to qualify it like that. But while you could look at 2022 and say it was a disappointment that Pitt's follow-up to the 11-win season, the ACC championship, was an 8-4 regular season, a pretty bad month of November, some at least one really bad loss in there and another pretty bad loss in there, and a disappointment in that regard. To still rally like they did, win 5 in a row, all 4 games in November, to win the Sun Bowl against a Power 5 opponent, missing a whole bunch of their players, and end up 9-4 and ranked in the top 25 to end the season. All in all, that's a pretty good year. And the point was made several times. Several people said it kind of throughout the month of November, certainly after the month of November and after the Sun Bowl, said, it is something of a testament to the program and where the program is that we can look at Pitt going 9-4, winning its bowl game, winning 5 games in a row, and beating a Power 5 opponent, a quality ranked Power 5 opponent in the bowl game, to finish with 9 wins and say, boy, that season was a letdown. That season was a disappointment. You can dwell on what might have been, and I don't think that's wrong. I'm not going to admonish you for doing that. They should have beaten Georgia Tech, and they should have beaten Louisville. They should have gone 3-1 in the month of October as opposed to 1-3. They should have finished the regular season 10-2. Should have. Absolutely. They should have been in Charlotte, with an opportunity to win 11 games again and be in a New Year's Six Bowl possibly. That's what should have happened. It didn't. It didn't happen. But what did happen was still a pretty good season, all things considered. Not without its bumps, not without its disappointments, not without its games you wish you could have back. But all in all, a pretty good season, particularly considering some of the adversity they've faced. Some self-inflicted and some not. And to rally and finish like they did with our guy, Nick Patty. There he is, pops up on the screen at the opportune moment. Of course, we have all the photos from the Sun Bowl rolling through there, so inevitably you're going to see Nick Patty at some point. But to finish out the way they did, and to get the recognition and finish in the top 25. Look, nobody's throwing a parade or building a statue for finishing number 22. But to again be in that group and to be listed there, I think it's a show of respect for the program. It's a recognition for what they accomplished this year. They had, all in all, a pretty good season. Disappointing and short of expectations, but still pretty good. Of course, the real irony of the rankings is that they end up ranked 1 spot behind UCLA, despite UCLA having the same record as Pitt and losing to Pitt head-to-head in the most recent game that was played. That's neither here nor there. I'll take it. I think 22 is a decent spot for this team to end up. They had opportunities to move themselves higher. They did not capitalize on those opportunities. And so they sort of got what they deserved. They got the spot that they earned and end up at number 22. So that was the story that came out. I guess it came out like late Monday night. Too late for it to make it into yesterday's Morning Pitt. But that was one story. The next thing that sort of developed throughout the day yesterday was another transfer. And it's not just another transfer joining the football program. It's another transfer from Western Pennsylvania who left the area coming back home to play at Pitt. It's Derek Davis, of course, 4-star safety prospect out of Gateway, went to LSU in the recruiting class of 2021. He was the number 101 prospect nationally. Number 6 prospect, I think, in the state of Pennsylvania. Number 6 safety prospect in the nation in that class. Chose LSU over offers from just about everybody. Could have gone anywhere in the country. And he goes to LSU, played in 12 games as a freshman in 2021, mostly on special teams. This past season, he played in 5 games, including the bowl game, which is a not unimportant sort of data point because they amended the redshirt rule late in the season that you could play. The redshirt rule now is if you play 4 games or less, you can take a redshirt. They amended that to exclude bowl games from counting against, or postseason games, I should say, from counting against that 4-game rule. Or that 4-game counter. And so Derek Davis played 4 games in the regular season and also appeared in LSU's thumping of Purdue in the Citrus Bowl, which would make 5 games. But since that bowl game doesn't count, he gets to take a red shirt for this past year, and he'll come to Pitt as a redshirt sophomore. That's the eligibility note. Far more interesting is the position note, because Derek Davis, the 4-star safety prospect, the guy who played, all defense and special teams as a freshman, and mostly defense and special teams as in the playing time that he got as a sophomore, is coming to Pitt as a running back. Now, he did get some playing time at running back at LSU. They played a game against UAB, I think, in November. He had a handful of carries that day. And then the Citrus Bowl against Purdue, I think he had some more carries there. Finished with like 11 total carries, had about 55 yards, scored a touchdown, an 11-yard touchdown against Purdue. Pretty impressive run, tough physical run. And, while we all talked about him as a safety prospect coming out of high school, and that's where he was projected in college, I even remember coming out of Gateway, there were some people who, not people at Gateway, but just people in the local area who said, Derek Davis is a great athlete. He's got great speed. He's a really good player. Not so sure if his game translates at defensive back at the college level. That maybe hips are too stiff or not flexible enough or something like that. And so those questions were raised back then, but it was clear that he was a plus athlete, had great speed and was a very, very good prospect, had a good chance to be very successful in college. But he was also a really good running back in high school. Really good with the ball in his hands. And you can go watch some of his highlight film from, I guess it would have been 2019, would have been his junior season. I don't think he played as a senior. It was 2020. And you recall some guys opted not to play that year. Elliot Donald, who came to Pitt from Central Catholic, opted not to play as a senior in 2020. And I think Derek Davis made the same decision. But you watch some of his high school highlights from 2019 when he was a junior, and the guy's a big-time playmaker. He goes. When he gets into the open field, he can be that home run hitter. And so the talent is there. LSU, I feel like I saw something that Brian Kelly even said maybe after the UAB game, they should have moved Derek Davis to running back sooner. Clearly, it wasn't working out at defensive back. And I think when he went into the transfer portal, Pitt and probably other colleges looked at his film and evaluated him and, they weren't really sold on him playing defensive back in college either. And so I think his opportunities were going to be on offense. He's obviously willing to do that because I think that's how Pitt is recruiting him now as a transfer, and it's he's choosing to go to Pitt, so it seems like he's sort of agreeing to it. I think it's a good fit for a few reasons. One, if you have a chance to bring a talented local player home, somebody you think can help you win games, and you should do it. More sort of specifically, I think he fits in well with Pitt's running back room. Yesterday we talked about the seniors, guys who would come back or, for an extra year or leave and either transfer or go to the NFL or whatever they were going to do. We talked about a couple of running backs, Vincent Davis and Sibo Flemister. Both guys have the option to come back in 2023 as super seniors. And I said, I don't think Vincent Davis is going to come back. I'm guessing Sibo Flemister does. Certainly, if both guys leave, you're facing some real depth issues at running back. If only one leaves, you've got Rodney Hammond. Obviously, that's ideally, if he can stay healthy, that's your bell cow. But if you have then Sibo Flemister as kind of the number two, Derek Davis can step in there and be a number three, and maybe battle for number two. I don't want to pigeonhole him into the third running back spot. But be in that top three rotation, then you've got three veteran players. Now, Derek Davis doesn't have a ton of experience playing running back in college. He doesn't have a ton of experience doing anything in college, but he's been in college for 2 years. Physically, he's more mature. Mentally, he's more mature. He knows the speed of the game. He's been on the field. He's been in the strength and conditioning programs. He's studied the offenses and defenses. Even if he hasn't played a ton, he's still got the experience of being in college football, which I think is valuable. Because if you don't have a guy like him, you've got Hammond, presumably Flemister, and then the two incoming freshmen, TJ Harvison, who's already on campus for the spring semester, and Montravius Lloyd, who will arrive in June. I don't think you want to be in that situation. Yes, freshmen can excel at running back. Freshman running backs can play and have success. Rodney Hammond did it. Izzy Abanikanda did it, but probably could have done more his freshman year. But if you have the opportunity to get older players, more mature players, more experienced players, veteran players, then you do it. You go get those guys. You if you can, and you'd like to fill up your room with them if possible. So if you have Hammond, Flemister, Davis, and then the two freshmen, you've kind of put a little bit of space in there where you maybe are less likely to have to rely on the freshmen, and you've also bolstered ideally the overall talent level in the running back room. I think that's the most immediate impact is you've just built out the depth and the size of the running back room. I think Andre Powell said you'd like to have 5 scholarship backs on the roster due to some issues here and there. Izzy Abanikanda leaving early, Jordan Bailey not making it, Malik Newton having to leave due to a medical issue, Henry Parrish decommitting, just due to a variety of issues. They have run low on numbers. To the point where they needed to sign 2 running backs this year just to kind of, plus the transfer, Sibo Flemister last year, plus Derek Davis as a transfer this year just to get those numbers back up. It's a little bit like wide receiver. They've run into some numbers crunches for a variety of reasons, and they've needed some transfers to help kind of boost the numbers. Now, the last thing I'll say about this Derek Davis transfer, and I talked about this probably early in December, after Phil Dracovic announced he was coming back, transferring to Pitt, I should say. And when it looked like Donovan McMillan was going to transfer to Pitt, or maybe even after he announced he was going to transfer to Pitt, and maybe Derek Davis was starting to become a possibility, I said, there are some interesting storylines that go along with these players who transfer home. These WPIAL guys who leave the area and then a couple years later come back. Now, Dracovic, McMillan, and Davis are not the first to do this. MJ Devonshire did it, going from Aliquippa to Kentucky for a couple seasons before transferring back to Pitt. Johnny Patrician went from Central Catholic to Penn State for a few years before transferring to Pitt. And so it's not without precedent. But I really think there's two potential outcomes here. And these aren't the only two, but in terms of recruiting and the impact it could have for you locally, I think there are two things to sort of consider or watch for, I guess. One is that young, local, up-and-coming recruits could look at these situations and say, so Dracovic went to Notre Dame, McMillan went to Florida, Davis went to LSU. All right, those guys were, let's say you're a freshman or sophomore or even junior high school recruit. You got a bunch of offers from all over the place, and you're considering Pitt, but you're considering a lot of schools. And you say, well, Dracovic went to Notre Dame, McMillan went to Florida, Davis went to LSU, and in the end, they all decided that they should come back to Pitt. Maybe I should just go to Pitt right off the bat. Maybe this was the right decision to begin with. And they made the wrong decision and ultimately had an opportunity to correct that mistake and come back to Pitt where they really should have been. That's scenario number one. Scenario number two is a young up-and-coming recruit looks at the situation and says, okay, Dracovic went to Notre Dame, McMillan went to Florida, Davis went to LSU, and then they ended up coming back to Pitt. Maybe I should go out into the world and experience the SEC or the Big Ten or whatever it is and see if I can make it there. And if it doesn't work out, I can always come back to Pitt. I always have that fallback option available to me. I could see it going either way. And it probably, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some guys who will look at it the first way and some guys who will look at it the second way and some guys who won't even think about Phil Dracovic or Donovan McMillan or Derek Davis when they're picking their colleges out of high school. It might have no influence at all or no impact at all. But I could see those two reactions being out there. And sometimes those reactions that the recruits are having is really the reactions the people around them are having and sort of putting in their ear. And I could see both cases. I could see a young kid coming up and, uncles or trainers or coaches or whoever are saying, look what Derek Davis did. Look what Donovan McMillan did. You can do that too. Go play at Florida. Go play at LSU. Go play at Georgia. Have a chance to make the college football playoffs and experience that. I think you're good enough to succeed there, but if it doesn't work out, you can always come back home to Pitt. And be close to your family, play in the ACC. You can always do that. I could see those conversations happening. And so it'll be interesting to see what kind of impact all these guys coming home ultimately has on the next waves of recruits. We've seen not these kinds of situations, but we've seen the older guys and their actions and their circumstances and their outcomes affect younger guys' decisions. The classic example, the one that will always ring out, is Tyler Boyd and Robert Foster in the recruiting class of 2013, where Boyd stays at Pitt and he becomes a superstar, and Foster goes to Alabama and kind of flounders a little bit, really kind of gets buried, lost among a shuffle of a bunch of guys who were like him, really good players. And then 2 years later, Jordan Whitehead comes out of the same high school as Robert Foster, looks at both of those situations and says, I'll go do what Boyd did. I will go be the star and have a great career for 3 years, which is ultimately, he followed almost the exact same path. I think he might have been drafted a little bit late. What was Whitehead, a 5th round pick maybe? Whereas Boyd was maybe like a 3rd round pick. But that's always sort of the classic example where seeing what came before them can influence the younger players' decisions. But we'll see. We'll see what impact having all these WPIAL guys coming home, what impact it can have on recruiting. All right, so those are the two big news stories from yesterday. And now we go to tonight. Pitt at Duke, 7 o'clock tip-off, Cameron Indoor. A huge game. Every time you play at Duke, it's a huge game. And I think, the Duke people feed off of that. They love the fact that it's a big deal to everybody who comes into that arena. That everybody who comes in is fired up to play Duke. It obviously means a little something extra when you've got Jeff Capel on the sidelines. And Capel, if you haven't seen it, Capel did a press conference on Monday where he talked about why he took the Pitt job, what it's been like being at the Pitt job, the experience of being at Pitt, and just kind of the challenges therein, and whether Duke was always his dream job. He talked about a lot of stuff. It was like a 28-minute press conference. I went through and transcribed the whole thing. It's on Panther-Lair.com. If you look, it's one of those like second headline. It's like the second headline there. Capel on why he came to Pitt. The challenges he faced. You should check that out. It's well worth. It's going to take you a little while to read through it because it's really long. It won't take you a half hour. It'll take you like 7 or 8 minutes, I bet. But it's really good. And I think it sheds a lot of insight on Capel's perspective on things and his perspective on Pitt. But now he's got a game to win. And it's not really about why you came to Pitt anymore. I mean, you should read that, like you, the Pitt fan, should read that for your own sort of entertainment and education and whatnot. For Jeff Capel now, it's not about why he's at Pitt or whether he wanted the Duke job or anything like that. It's about getting his team to rebound from the game that they played on Saturday when they lost to Clemson 75-74, and a big way, and try to get a win tonight against Duke. And a big part of that's going to be rebounding. And Pitt's been sort of an odd rebounding team. I don't tend to think of them as a great rebounding team, but largely the numbers have sort of illustrated them as a good rebounding team. They've been, by the numbers, one of the better rebounding teams in the ACC this season, which I think is interesting because I don't really view them as having viable options in the forward positions. I don't think of them as having great rebounding forwards, with Fede Federico and Blake Hinson. But their numbers have been pretty good. Now, I think Jeff Capel talked on Monday about the need to gang rebound, the need to have the guards get involved in the rebounding, and I think that's a big part of it. Oftentimes, I think you see teams that shoot threes a lot don't always rebound all that well because you get those long rebounds. They're harder to predict. They're harder to tell where they're going. They're harder to read off the rim. And they sometimes go to weird places where you don't have anybody there to get the rebound. I think you need the guards to be more active in trying to track those rebounds down to get second chance opportunities. If you're shooting a lot of threes, you're inevitably going to have more misses, more offensive rebound opportunities, and Pitt's going to have to do a better job there. I thought it was interesting, and I wonder if Capel is sort of stoking the fire a little bit, intentionally or otherwise, when he talked on Monday that Duke is not as physical as Clemson. Nobody likes to be told that they're not physical, even if he's just saying it as a way of giving praise to another team rather than, talking down on you. I think anybody's going to react negatively when they hear that another coach said, well, they're not as physical as Clemson. Clemson's the most physical team in the conference. But I think there's probably some truth to that. I think Duke has a lot of strengths. I think they've got talented players like they always do. But they don't look quite as physical as Clemson was, and I think there should be more rebounding opportunities for Pitt in this one. Ultimately, it's going to come down, to something that's almost sort of matchup proof with this team. Now, I don't say, matchup proof is a little bit too broad because, inevitably if they're playing Syracuse, they're going to have to attack it differently than when they played Clemson, just like they'll have to attack it differently when they played Virginia, and they'll have to attack it differently when they play Duke tonight. It's about this team's offense, sort of period, point blank. It's about this team's offense and whether the offense can be effective. And when you look at that Clemson game, what's the stat I keep throwing out? They made 1 2-point basket in the first 17 minutes of the game. You can't do that. You can't go 3 of 8 from the floor in the final 5.5 minutes while you're trying to protect an 8-point lead. You need to be able to score more effectively. And I think that performance was largely out of character with who this team has been pretty much all season. and who I've come to genuinely believe that they are. I mean, we've watched this team for 16 games. We've seen them struggle early in the season, lose another game in the at Vanderbilt, but by and large be a really good offensive team that can kind of take over games with its offense, get out and go in transition, and always shoot itself back into a game. When they fall behind, they're able to come back because they have the three ball available to them, because they are a three-point shooting team, a good three-point shooting team. And so those are going to continue to be the strengths. So when they go against Duke tonight, and I'm not sure, I haven't yet decided how I'm going to pick this game. There's a part of me that thinks, if they can rebound effectively, I think their offense will bounce back into form and be closer to what it was against Virginia or Syracuse or what have you than what it was against Clemson. And even against Clemson, I mean, their offense wasn't that bad. They just had a couple of tough stretches, particularly in the final 5.5 minutes. I mean, they battled back from a 12-point deficit, right, or a 10-point deficit. I mean, they kept themselves in that game. They fell behind and engineered a pretty effective comeback. They just couldn't finish it. So even that game doesn't really raise too many red flags for me about their offense. Nelly Cummings has to play better than he did against Clemson. I don't think there's any question about that. But Jamarius Burton is rolling right now. Blake Hinson's playing really well. Greg Elliott on any night could give you 4 or 5 3-pointers. I don't think there's any question about that. It'll be interesting to see if they continue to get quality minutes out of Nate Santos and Guillermo Diaz-Graham off the bench. I think that's going to be a tougher proposition, so staying out of foul trouble is going to be huge tonight, as it always is. Good luck with that when you're playing at Cameron. I don't know if Jeff Capel would acknowledge that, but I think it has to have certainly been an eye-opening experience for him to not be on the Duke sideline in these ACC games and see what it's like for the rest of the world to get called to have to deal with the officiating in ACC games. But you got to keep your key guys out of foul trouble. Most notably, that's Burton, Cummings, and Hinson. But you also, I don't think you can let Federico get into foul trouble either. You need to try to avoid that. Some of those things are going to be unavoidable. But if you run into foul trouble and you're relying on Guillermo Diaz-Graham for quality minutes again, it was good. It was effective. It was solid against Clemson. I don't know how it's going to hang in there against Duke. So I don't know if I'm quite ready to pick Pitt in this game, but I am ready to say, or continue to say, that I feel like Pitt is a team that can compete with just about anybody they'll face in this league this season. I'm not sure there's a team in this league they can't compete with. That doesn't mean they're going to win every game, but I think they can be pretty competitive with just about anybody they face, and that's what I expect to see tonight, a competitive game. I think Jamarius Burton, Blake Hinson, Nelly Cummings, if he's healthy and over whatever illness he had over the last week or so, those three guys will drag this team into any game and do everything they can to keep the game from slipping away, because that's what they've done. And just when it seems like maybe one or two of those guys are slipping, Greg Elliott will drain a three. So the pieces are there. If you're looking what it'll take to win a game at Duke, I think Pitt's got a lot of the pieces. Like I say, I'm not sure if I'm ready to pick them to win yet. Just can't quite commit to it. I'll probably, when I look at our staff picks later today, and I'll see what Steven Gertz and Matt Steinbrink and Houston Wilson and Jim Hammett picked. We keep our standings on how we do on the game picks. And if those guys all pick Duke, I'll be the one who does it. I'll take Pitt just to get a game up on those guys, for sure. All right, it's going to be a good one tonight, and we'll have lots to talk about after the game. Don't forget, live stream post-game show after Pitt Duke tonight, right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Turn on notifications so you get an alert sent to your phone. You never miss any of the Morning Pitt videos we put up every morning, Monday through Friday, and you never miss any of our live streams like we're doing tonight after the Pitt Duke game. I don't know what time it'll start, but we'll be live shortly after the game. If you subscribe and you turn on your notifications, you won't miss it. So tonight, right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. It's always fun to do a live stream post game. We haven't done that in a while, so look forward to busting that out tonight. Should be a good time. Hope you can tune in. Thanks for checking this Morning Pitt video out today. Make sure you like and subscribe. Hope you've had a great week so far. We're at the midpoint of the week. Huge game tonight. Love it. Hope you have a great day. I hope you enjoyed the game tonight. We'll talk to you tonight on the live stream, and we'll be back tomorrow morning for the Morning Pit right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.